welcome back to Momentous Struggle, a Star Wars Shatterpoint podcast. On today's episode, Aubrey and I are going to do a patron episode. One of our patrons asked for an episode in regards to what we like to do to help build the community, so we're going to go ahead and talk about that today. So let's go ahead and jump into it. As always, I'm joined by Aubrey. How are we doing today?
I thought I was doing good today, Todd. I thought I was. And then I went to the Shatterpoint tournament in Maricopa, and about towards the end of round one, I started to feel worse. And I basically space cadeted my way through round two. Sorry, Matt. I was basically dead. And I mean, we did take a lunch break, so I felt a little better. I went and got food, got a drink, thought I was okay again, got back, started playing round two with Matt, and no, my brain turned completely to mush. So how are you doing, Todd? How was your day?
My day was good. I didn't do much today. I didn't make it to the tournament because I was running a MCP event. So like I think most people know by now, I run the state championship series for MCP, and we had the city championship for Tucson. Well, Tucson just happens to be 2 hour drive south of Phoenix. So I drove down there yesterday and ended up running a 4 round tournament and then drove back. So I had basically from the time that I left my house to the time that I got back was about 13 hours. So I had a long day yesterday. Wasn't going to play much
Oh,
MCP. Just hung out with the kiddo and took her to like a little indoor playground place because we have tons of those in Arizona because during the summer it's too hot to go outside. So yeah, that was kind of like my time. But no, I'm super excited for like all of the releases just finally dropped here locally, which is really awesome. So we'll actually start getting. I know like one of our local players, Matt. He's not a local player. He's becoming a local player because he only likes the original trilogy characters, and so he's gonna play. He bought only Ewoks, and he's jumping in just to play Ewoks. So I'm excited for the growth that this is gonna bring to the game because there's some people that they only like certain things when it comes to Star Wars, and the original trilogy is it. So I'm excited for that. I'm really excited to see if our game grows based off of the new characters that are coming out and going into a new era for Star Wars, which is going to be really exciting. But yeah, you played in a tournament today. So how did all of that go?
so it was a great event. Mysteries Comics in Maricopa. They put on a fun event. They first place got a free squad pack, which is great, and it's a free tournament. No fee to enter the tournament. So you got that. Plus, he has some of the foil promo cards to give to different participants, which is always nice. Like I already have my set, but it's cool
Yeah, to get
see
that
to
out to
see stuff
everybody.
like that.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, but so like it was myself, Matt, Damon, we all played in the last event that was down there, and then a new player, Xander, something with a Z. I think that was it. And he unfortunately had to leave early, so we got the first two rounds done. But then he was like, "Oh, guys, I forgot. Like he had plans that he'd forgotten about or something. He's like, I gotta go." But there's only four people, Todd, and that would have left basically Matt with a bye, watching Damon and I play. Which I mean, the store could just pay out prizes because Matt went 2-0, and uh, yeah, we actually had a very tight game, him and I. So first round, I played against the newer player, although he played very well. It was a very tight back and forth between us. We both had Django, and because he was running like this like separatist stuff
Yeah, I have a
with Grievous and things, and like we had a lot of fun.
cool.
And then round two against Matt, we literally filled every square on the struggle tracker in struggle three because we got to mission critical, and we had already almost filled up the tracker before we even got to mission critical. That filled it in the rest of the way, and it came down to this nail biter of a turn where Maul was going to go off the table. He had two wounds on him, So I just went all out trying to wound Dooku, which was easy. Dooku was close to being wounded too. I only attacked Dooku to wound him because basically there was a scenario where I had, well, obviously I had forgotten about Dooku's reactive ability, but if I pulled one character off a point and then wounded Dooku, I had fifth brother there who could have taken, I think it was fifth brother, yeah, could have taken the point for me, even though Maul left the table. But then, of course, Dooku moved a droid back onto the point, so that failed, and then uh, it was basically an auto win. All Matt had to do was get Django off a point, and he had Kraken, I think was his activation. So Kraken's got his shoves. So you go to Shove City,
Yeah.
shove. Django was off. Django was off. David and I were gonna play. Matt was gonna just watch us or leave or whatever, and so we were like, we could just end the tournament. Like it wasn't gonna affect. Like it. There's no worse feeling than being at the table. If you've never been in a tournament, listeners, you could play a whole round and the results don't matter. They aren't going to affect the tournament whatsoever. So you're basically just playing a for fun game, except it doesn't feel fun because the winner's already been decided and you're just over here doing whatever.
Yeah.
So we just ended the tournament, which was fine because, uh, as I've talked about, whenever I finally get sick, everybody, this is not a thing. This is a me thing. I stay sick for a long time. My immune system just puts up the white flag and says, "Have your way with Aubrey." But I thought it was better today, which is why I went to the event, and then just petered out. So I was like, I told Damon, I was like, "Hey, I could play a game with you. My brain is half cooked to mush. If you want to play a fun game," and he's like, "No, dude, go home. Like, what are you doing?" And now I'm here talking to you. That was how my day went.
Hey, I mean, it all works out, I guess. Like now you're here, just being mush, and we appreciate that. We appreciate. I'm sure the listeners are very happy that you're here to just spew out whatever comes out your mouth.
I mean, I assume if you're still listening at this point, oh, unless you're a new listener, in which case Todd and I are the epitome of professionalism and we never ramble ever in this podcast.
Never in this
But
podcast would we
for
do that.
everybody else, yeah, we'd never do that. For everybody else, I assume you're still here despite that. So, hey, let's go. Oh, wait. Todd, did I mention the most important detail about how many wounds Matt did to Maul?
He didn't he do enough to like move him all? You said he was getting ready to come off the board, so like I'm assuming he no.
No. This is very important, Todd. I took a picture of it, put it in the Discord and everything. If you're not in our Discord, join our Discord. We have great chats in there. He managed because I just did my last hurrah, so I just stacked as much damage on Maul as possible because I was playing Maul Vader again.
Mm-hmm.
So he had like 9 damage on him once I was done using all of his abilities and swinging for the fences to take out Dooku. So he was able to use Dooku's ability to just go back up and poke Maul for the last little bit of damage that was left on him. So Maul had 3 2 injured, and then a wound token before he left the table. So
That's
you can wound Maul 3 times in a game if you're Dooku and Matt.
I don't know if that's really possible, but hey, we'll go with it. It's fine. We'll make it work. But no, I mean, it's awesome. It sounds like you had a fun time at least at the store and everything. And I think that really definitely does kind of like tie into overall like what we're trying to talk about in this week's episode, which is building the community, because going to these small events and helping to sit there and like make sure these small events like that fire is important to help grow the community, because you might have that one new person like you had show up at the event, and if it doesn't fire, they might just walk away and go, you know what, no one plays this game, so I'm not going to show up, and I'm not worried about playing. So it's important to sit there and have that. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of a good jumping off point for like talking about this. And I will say, before we go too far down into that, I was hesitant to have this episode simply because our friends over at Zion's Finest did like a 2-part episode or 2-part podcast on building a community and what it takes to do that. And they had some really good points in that. So definitely, I don't want to steal any of their thunder or anything like that, because they did have some really great episodes out there in regards to that, and I hope that we don't steal what they were saying. If we did, Kenny, I'm sorry. Matt, I'm sorry. Scott, I'm sorry. But but there is like, but it is very important to build a community as well, and I think that's something important to like really discuss is with locally, because if you have the ability to do so, if you have a store that's willing to work with you to nurture and foster a community.
Yes, yes. And again, if you haven't heard those episodes, feel free to stop our podcast. You've already downloaded it. You can come back, stop, and go listen to them first because uh, I'll be honest, I listened to those episodes when they came out.
Mm-hmm.
They had great information. I did not re-listen to them before this. So we probably are going to tread some of the same ground. It is entirely by accident. A multitude of voices offering the same counsel can be a good thing, though. So if we say the same stuff, oh no, maybe it's because you should listen to all of us.
Yeah, I mean, and growing a community is a difficult task. Like I said, you still have to have those resources. That is the local gaming store to sit there and help out with that. I mean, luckily, I mean we're in Arizona, we're in Phoenix, which we're one of the larger urban areas within the country. So we have a plethora of gaming stores. I mean, I think within it's like probably about a 15-20 minute drive for me. I'm it can get to two different gaming stores, a tabletop wargamer and Imperial Outpost, and then another, add another 10 minutes on, and I can get to Gamers Guild. So it's like I have three large gaming stores within a half-hour drive. So it's like it's easy for me to go there, and they're all really good at helping grow a community, foster a community, and everything along those lines. So I mean, that's I think the first jumping off point is having a store that's willing to buy into it for sure.
Yes, and dear listeners, I understand if you are in a rural area. I grew up in a part of Nevada. The the town becoming a city, incorporated into a city, was a big deal. There was sub 10,000 people living in the place I grew up with. The nearest game store where I could go to as a kid when I was younger was 45 minutes away next to the Costco that we went to get groceries because it was cheaper to buy groceries at that Costco than at the one grocery store that we had in the town that I grew up in. So so if you don't have a close store, that is your first struggle. That can be difficult, but I mean, one of those things that I like to remind people is you, even though it's harder without a store, you can build a community. It's just now a lot more is going to be on you. Like if you open up your home and you do like a weekly game night or a monthly Shatterpoint event, and it doesn't work out because life happens. Well, now it's all on you. It's not like you could stay home, but you cheer on everybody from the sidelines. Like I know today, at least several of the regulars were on Discord all day talking about the event. I was sending pictures of the event, so I know it's harder. But I have done that too. Like I remember when uh, in Carson City, which is the capital of Nevada. Big town, Todd. Big town. Do you want to guess how many people live in Carson City, Nevada?
Well, that's wait,
The
Carson's
capital of the state.
the capital of the state. You know what? And I was just going through the capitals with my daughter. I want to say it's like something like 200,000 is like the most, but I might be wrong. I looked at
No,
all of the capitals. Is it like only like 80,000?
that's too small. It's like 60,000. It's
Oh
like
Jesus,
60,000.
that's
Yeah,
awful.
no. You were thinking of Reno. Reno next door. Reno's giant. It has like 200,000 people in it. And do you hear me when I say giant? It has 200,000 people. How many people? Oh no, this is my thing I tell everyone. There are more people living in the Phoenix metro area than live in the entire state of Nevada. And most of the people who live in Nevada live in Las Vegas.
Yep.
So it is harder, but I've what I've done in the past is so in Carson, our local game store. went under. It was actually a sad story, and I don't really want to tell it because it was a sad story. But it went under, and I loved that guy. Oh man, he was my first LGS. Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. We had so many great games of Magic and other games there, but goes under. Uh, and there was only one other store in town. That was it. And so we all packed up and went over there, and it was a newer store. It had only opened like in the last year, and so a lot of us were like, "Oh, we're not going over there. We're loyal to our LGS." But now here we are. That's the only option. Yeah, they were awful. They don't exist anymore. Good riddance. They did not do anything well. They didn't they didn't do anything well. I don't need to dwell on that. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is I ended up running Friday Night Magic, which FNM, that's the big thing. Everybody goes out to play Magic on Friday. That's what the company's done for years. I ran FNM at my library, and I had to contort all kinds of stuff to make this happen. I had to like join our volunteer group because I couldn't run it while the library was open, and they wouldn't let me like work overtime to do it. So I had to like become a volunteer of the library, even though I also worked there. I'm pretty sure they weren't supposed to let me do that, but it's a small town. Who cares? Uh, and I volunteered my time running this like bootleg F&M out of the library. And you know what? It worked until another store finally opened that did know how to do anything that an LGS should be able to do, and it worked out great.
Yeah,
So
and I think that's kind of the point of
well,
it
yeah,
is like, like
yeah,
find what works overall though. Like if it's not if you don't have a store that is going to sit there and run something well, and you really are destined to want to sit there and have a this your game, whatever your game is, grow, open, find a space to sit there and do it and run it. Like Magic is a little more difficult because you have wizards that oversees everything. Like but Shatterpoint is not going to be that difficult, where it's like, okay, just go find a place where you have a couple of three by the tables that have 3x3 spaces to sit there and set up a mat and just play, and you bring in people to go and play that.
yeah. And another thing is, okay, and this is me speaking from my background. I've worked as a librarian for uh 13 years now, 12 years, I don't know, something like that, over a decade. I've worked in libraries for over a decade. The other thing is, your local library, there is at least one probably overworked person who is in charge of managing events at your local library. Depending on the rules of whatever entity they are, they're usually run by local government, city, county, etc., occasionally state, but usually it's city and county level. They may have rules against this, so don't despair. I'm warning you now. But sometimes some libraries will let volunteers run events, and they want to be able to put free stuff up on the calendar. And if you tell them, I will run the event, I know all the rules, I will do this for you, they might let you. And you'll have access to a whole room, likely with folding chairs and tables that you can break down and set up, and they will happily let you do this
Mhm.
as long as it works with whatever their other engagements are on their calendar and things. So I mean that's another option. And other weird stuff. Sometimes Starbucks has meeting rooms you can just use. I didn't know this, but in Surprise, the city of Surprise didn't rent out our meeting room. Like outside people couldn't use it, and there's not that kind of space in Surprise because it's kind of a very much a retirement community. And so Starbucks had a meeting room that we would direct people to. I'm sure there's probably a fee involved in using that for an organized event, but again, there's weird options. If you have to pull those levers, that would be the first thing.
Yeah, so there's
Otherwise, go to your store and hopefully the one where you're buying your Shatterpoint stuff from, and talk to them about running an event. There's the next step.
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, once you find a location, whatever that location may be, you definitely could run out and start looking around for what's the next thing to do. So you have a place where maybe you can set up two or three tables. Now you just got to get the players, and that's, I think, one of the harder parts is drumming up those players. You can start by going into Facebook groups and like looking for the local players in the area. I know one of the nice things is AMG has their own Discord, and I'll put a link to their Discord into the show notes here. But they have their own Discord, and within their own Discord, they have a sub area where you can actually put up all of the different um, every individual location can sit there and have their own channel, so to speak, or their own feed, where you can go and say, "Hey, this is I'm looking for local players in this area." And I've actually had some of the admins from that thing or from that Discord reach out to me, say, "Hey, you're not in here. Come and join, so you can sit there and help somebody else find your local community." So there are things out there to help you find your local communities wherever those may be, whether it's Facebook, Discord. I'm sure there's plenty of things on Reddit as well to sit there and help you find your community. So definitely find that. And once you find those players, the next thing you have to do really after that is really teach people how to play the game. Have a learn to play night. And you might have to do this multiple times, or you might just have to go one on one. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. I went to my LGS when I got off of work, and I spent the next 4 hours doing back to back teaching games, teaching new players how to play the game. One of them, for the most part, they had already played other games that were MCP players, so like picking up the game wasn't that difficult for them. But they still needed someone to kind of walk them through how to play the game, and that's the next part of it is teaching someone how to play the game and walking them through it. I will put a caveat on that. When you're teaching a new person to play the game, you don't want to steamroll them and just sit there and do you don't want to sit there and go, "Hey, here's the 501st. I'm going to bring my, I'm going to bring the Magna Guard in and just sit there and crush them." You want to sit there and have an even base game. I will say I lose every teaching game that I ever do. And most of it's because I'm focused on making sure the player that I am playing against is learning the rules, and not that I'm making the most optimal moves. I'm more focused on them learning the game and actually enjoying themselves. Because if you're going to run somebody off the table, they're not going to enjoy themselves. They're not going to come back and play the game again. And I think that's something very pivotal. And I do teaching games on for multiple different games like this and MCP, and I've had times where I've done teaching games and like the person's come back and said, "Yeah, someone taught me how to play this game before, and I was miserable and didn't want to play the game." And now 6 months later, they come back and I do an MCP teaching game. Like, even though I won, they're like, "Oh, I really had a good time playing this game. Thank you." And that's what you want to do, is help nurture the community by someone having a good time, because they're not always there to just sit there and crush somebody. They want to enjoy themselves and spend, if they're going to spend 2 hours of their life, of their day doing this, you don't want them to sit there and walk away and go, "Well, that was really awful. I don't want to experience that again."
Yes, please. Okay, so what I recommend, because I do this sort of thing in my work, I have a Pokemon club that meets every month, and I most of it is me teaching very young children how to play Pokemon. They might not understand the words draw a card, search your deck for a card, uh, attach an energy to your Pokemon. Those words mean nothing to these children because they may have never played a card game before in their lives. So again, recognize that unless the person you're teaching has a background like they've played MCP or they've played similar game systems in the past, also don't overwhelm them with terminology. And games have a lot of vocabulary, and you want to make sure that you're communicating. Don't just start saying, "All right, you use use your dash tool to go over here, blah 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 blah." Now you gotta explain in very finite detail, but at the same time, don't try to teach them everything at once. Just start the game. I mean, teach them as much as they need to know to start the game. Then teach them how to do the activations, like go through the turn with them. And the other thing, and I know we've talked about this a tiny bit before, and I've heard it on other podcasts, but a learn to play event can be done with multiple people
Mhm.
because Shatterpoint is very easily turned into a team game. And I don't mean like the usual team, like at high level tournaments where it's like you're each playing your own individual Shatterpoint game and that's a team. I mean, like if you want to teach three people at once, or even 4 people at once, and then you just watch. You just assign everybody a squad. They are control of one squad, and when the order card flips over for that squad, all right, player A is moving these people, player B is moving these people and making the decisions. That way, because the thing that happens sometimes with these events is too many people come,
Yeah.
and then some people are bored because they're just watching, and that's the thing that happens with like Pokemon. Like Pokemon, it doesn't really translate into multiplayer very well, but I still will tell the kids, all right, you and you're on a team, you all make decisions together. You and you're on a team, you make decisions together, and then that changes the dynamic, even though it's kind of like your little giving your little brother a controller that isn't attached to the video
Yeah.
game. you you still, people will feel more engaged than if they're just like, yeah, okay, moves the thing, yeah, whatever, blah blah blah, blah, blah. So and that way you can also grow the community, because then people like multiplayer's in, commander has taken over magic, people, you don't want a game that you can't play with like all of your friends.
Yeah.
So fine, turn Shatterpoint into a multiplayer game, into a multiplayer experience. It works fine. Yeah, that's not going to be their experience at tournaments and things, but we're just talking about teaching how to play and getting interest in the game. Start there, and then people will either gravitate towards the more competitive or the more casual side.
Yeah, I mean, like the first time like I introduced you to the game, it was you and your stepson, and the two of you showed up, and basically it was like, okay, here's your squad, and you gave you the order deck, and I played one squad, and basically you guys shared the squad, and it was like, okay, you're gonna play like Ahsoka and the Mandos over here, you're gonna play Maul and the Mandos over here. If you draw whatever comes up on the order deck, if that's your squad, you do the activation, and it works out great to sit there and do a teaching game that way, where it's like, okay, was I can help you while you go through this activation, and then I can help your stepson while he goes through that activation, and it works out fantastic to do a teaching game that way if you are short on having people to do so. Like if it was just one person and you have like multiple people coming in, or even so, like let's say you have 3 people, then you split your squad up as well, and you guys work together, and then you're helping that other person. So there's definitely ways to sit there and make it work if you're shorthanded. I know, luckily, at our LGS at Imperial Outpost, they had a learn to play event this past weekend, and luckily they have multiple people, employees there, that can sit there and jump in and teach the game. With Alan being such an amazing miniatures gamer as he is, he just jumped in and was able to help people because he was teaching both MCP and Shatterpoint this weekend. So it was pretty awesome that they were able to do that.
Wait, was that at the same time, Todd?
Yeah, they had both, but they were doing a learn to play for both games at the same time. It was an AMG learn to play event, basically.
And and Alan was just seamlessly jumping back and forth. That would break my brain.
Well, I don't know if he was jumping back and forth, but I know that I saw like some of the there was both of them were going on at the same time. So they had people for MCP and they had people for Shatterpoint at the same time, like in pictures. So the same day they were doing the learn to play for both of those. So
That's awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome.
hats off to Alan.
Yeah. So that, right. So that brings me kind of like to a final detail. Again, a learn to play event, and this is something that I tell the kids, because again, this might be their first time experiencing a competitive game, right? And so I have to tell them at the beginning, because they'll get cocky, and I gotta Han Solo them and be like, don't get cocky, kid.
You're right.
If they beat them in their learning game, they're like, oh, I'm so great, I won, blah blah blah. No, I tell the kids, I sit them down and I go, look, today is about learning. Neither of you win. You want to know who wins? And they never know. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I win because my goal is to teach you to play the game. So I'm the only one who gets to win today. The rest of you are just learning.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you got to talk like that to adults. Like, this game is obviously catering to an older audience than Pokemon, but just that's something to a mindset that you've got to remember. The only thing that matters at the end of these teach to play events is, did they have fun, and do they want to play the game again?
Right.
and it's your job to engineer the experience. I cheat at almost every single one of my Pokemon clubs. You want to know why? Because if one kid doesn't draw energy and the other one does, it's going to be a real quick game. So if I start to notice that, I start massaging the deck. I start picking up their deck, and every turn their draw becomes a demonic tutor. It's a powerful magic card that lets you search for any card. Well, their draws start to turn into exactly the card you need, and exactly the card you need. I wonder what. And they never notice because they're kids.
Yeah.
But the point is, and really, I'm just piling on your point is don't steamroll them. Like what I would use, and because we're gonna get to talk. Well, I guess we talk about it now. We are also very much pushing. Like we're asking stores. Do you want us to run a learn to play event? When would you like to host a learn to play event? Do you want multiple players? Like how much time? Like we're actively asking the stores. We're not just waiting for stores
Mm-hmm.
to come around to this idea. We're seeking out opportunities for learn to play events. But what I'm going to do when I do one of these, because I've learned people don't like picking like their favorite characters. They get nervous. I was like, hey, well, have you seen the Shatterpoint characters? Like, pick one, and I'll bring that squad. They don't like that. So my new tactic is just bring the core box.
Yeah, no, that's the best way to
The
go.
core box is designed as the starting point for this game, right?
Hmm.
So don't bring Dooku Vader or Mace Vader or these crazy highly tuned murder death lists. Leave the Ewoks at home. Bring the Mandos and the 501st and the B1s and teach them. Just show them how to play. Make it fun.
Yeah, definitely having the fun part of having the fun in the game is the most important piece of it. Um, Going to your point about the core box, whenever I do a teaching game, it's really good to just jump into the core box too and only utilize the pieces of the core box, because then you can use that as, hey, this is what you need to, you buy this and you're able to sit there and play exactly the game that we played already, and you know how these pieces work. I would do that with MCP all the time, where I would only use the core box pieces to sit there and run a game, a teaching game. So it's like, well, if you are interested in this game, here's the core box. The store sells it over here. You can pick that up, and now you're ready to play the game just like we played right now, and go from there. So it's a good way to help support the store and everything along those lines too.
Yeah, yeah. Plus, this game it's a tabletop game, and like I did not understand even after you explained it to me what I was getting into. I opened up the box and there's these giant sprues forever and ever into the depths, and I'm like, "Where's my toys? Like I want to play with them." And I'm like, "Man, this is taking IKEA some assembly required to a new level."
Yeah.
Because again, it
You
was
mean I
my
have to
first
build
tabletop
my
game.
toys?
I didn't know.
You have to build your toys, and then you have to paint your toys before you get to play with your toys. It's like, it's horrible. No, it's, I mean, it's funny. It's like, that is a part of the hobby. I know there's so many people that are like, I just want to play the game. I don't want to build it. I don't want to paint it, and they will pay people to sit there and do it. So I mean, if that's you, hey, by all means, there's plenty of people out in the community that are willing to sit there and do that work for you for a nominal fee. But it's definitely, I mean, I enjoy the painting piece of it. So for me, I love the hobby side of the gaming and everything. But yeah, that is one of the parts of it, is make sure the players that you're teaching understand that when they buy those boxes, they're coming in pieces. You know, they're not gonna be completely fully assembled and painted. This isn't hero clicks by any means. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and this is more of just thinking back, and it abuses me now. But it's just important that this be a good experience. And this may feel weird if you don't have like the background that I do. Like I manage events for libraries. That's one of the primary tasks that I do as a librarian. I'm what's called a programming librarian. We do programming at the library, and I have to come up with these things. And one of the things I have to do is a children's story time. Like I read a book, sing songs, do rhymes, just like you're thinking. Hopefully, you got to experience that as a child. It's fun. but I have to also tell the grown-ups what the expectations are, because the story time is not just about the kids listening to a story and having fun. It's about them learning and growing and eventually becoming, good readers. And I have to tell the parents explicitly. There's two types of parents at story time. Half of them I have to tell to pay attention because they think it's daycare. The librarian's going to babysit my kid, and I can get on my phone and look at Twitter. No, it's not that. But it's also that, all right, child, you are going to sit here and listen to the librarian and not move and don't blink and don't do anything. And this is going to be fun. Except they forgot that last part. I have to help everyone get to my end goal, which is in this case to have fun. So if it feels weird that you're managing their emotions, I really just mean do this with intention.
Yeah.
Your intention needs to be very clear before you get started, and then go for it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So I mean that's I mean I think that's kind of the entire idea of what we're wanting to talk about is, find that community, that place to sit there and teach people how to play the game. Teach with the intent of actually learning and having fun, not I just want someone to beat up on for the day, because then okay, well yeah, that's great. You beat up on somebody and now you're not going to have that person come back to beat up on again. So teach with intent. Teach with the intent to have a fun time, grow the game, things along those lines. And I think one other thing I want to add in, which is not related but somewhat related, there's crossover between miniature gaming. Like you might have a person who's coming over. He's like, you know what? I've heard about Shatterpoint. I mostly play whatever game workshop game is that they play, but I want to see what this is all about. So they come over and play a game. The first thing you should not do is tell them, oh, I hate Games Workshop because of reasons XYZ, or I don't like Warhammer 40K because of reasons XYZ. That immediately is going to turn that person off, and they are not going to listen to anything else you have to say because you just bashed on the game that they love playing. And I see that so many times where it's like, I mean, I had an incident at the game store where it was like one of the locals that I play with was like, I'm kind of done with MCP. I'm thinking of moving on to 40K. And someone else in the store was just like, man, 40K, I hate that game. Games Workshop, da, 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 da. And they like started going on their own little rant about it. And it's like, well, they don't want to play with people that are going to sit there and tell them how bad their game is and or something along those lines. And they're like, okay, well, I just turned you off. I'll sit there and spend this next 30 minutes with you talking about your game, and then I'm going to walk away and never come back to Shatterpoint again. So that, I mean, don't put down the people that you're playing with. They have a love. They've invested, especially if it's a game workshop game. They've invested hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars into this game,
Ooh, yeah.
and if they don't want to hear someone tell them how bad the game is or what's wrong with the game that they play, because they are invested. They've spent hours upon hours painting their miniatures and playing their game and buying those miniatures. They don't want to hear that. So I think that's something else that people need to keep in mind is, don't put somebody down. Don't put what they like down. Be like, well, you know what? Just yeah, I mean, I've played 40K before. It's not my cup of tea. But I like my game because of this. It does or point out the highlights of your game, not the low points of the game that they play. As I guess what my key takeaway from that whole conversation is.
Yeah, and if this is confusing, dear listeners, it's all right. I've got a story for you. Now, analogy time.
A
When I was
story,
little,
Aubrey stories. What? Surprising that Aubrey
yeah,
has a
story
story
time,
for us.
Aubrey.
It's like,
Yes. So when I was little, of course, I watched Star Wars over and over and over and over and over and over and over because I loved it. It was my first big fandom after Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and uh, I was getting bored, Todd, of watching the same three movies. I spent one summer. I distinctly remember this. I woke up every day for 2 months and put on Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi every day. How my mother didn't strangle me in my sleep, I don't know. but I did this tour one summer.
Wait.
I
So
watched
you're
it
saying
every
in a
day.
city of only 60,000 people, you had nothing better to do all summer long than watch the same 3 Star Wars movies over and over again because there was nothing else to do in that town?
No. That was Carson City, Todd. I grew up in Fernley.
Oh, that's right.
Fernley had less than 10,000 people. If you didn't like horses, dirt bikes, or hunting, that was it. Those were the only forms of entertainment in Fernley, Nevada.
So basically, that's why you
Those three
watch
things.
Star Wars all the time. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, yeah. Our park had like a slab of cement for a skate park. like it was like like anyway, and as we know, my coordination is not the best. It's gotten better now that I do swords, but not the best. So sports were sort of out for little Aubrey. But anyway, all right. Now that we've gone over my amazing childhood, I was starting to get bored with Star Wars, Todd. I I had Super Empire Strikes Back on the Super NES. It was great times. How could I be getting bored with Star Wars? Well, I was because I read all the books. I was doing all that. I had consumed every content I could get my hands on with my limited means. And you know what I had to do? I was on the TV, cable television, and Star Trek came on. Dun dun dun. Well, as a faithful Star Wars fan, knew one thing about Star Trek, and that Star Trek was worse and than Star Wars, and Star Wars was better, and suck it, Trekkies. But I was bored, dear listeners. I was so bored of Star Wars because I had done everything. So I started watching Star Trek. And Todd, can you guess what happened? Was Star Trek actually bad?
No, not at all. It's a good show.
No, I still think Star Wars is better if you want to pin me to the wall and make me pick one. But it turns out I could like both of them.
Right? Shocker.
But some nerd, some older nerd that I must have encountered at the comic book store, or no, just a game store. I don't think it had the one I went to had comics in it when I was a kid. So I had encountered some salty nerd somewhere who had put this idea in my head because it wasn't my family. My family was like, "What's the difference between Star Trek and Star Wars?"
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the extent of their knowledge of my doings. So I got this idea somewhere, and it was probably because of some person who decided to put something down instead of building up.
Yeah.
So
So
please,
long story short, don't put it down. Yeah.
this is what you got to do.
No,
Yeah,
that's exactly the point though. It's like you don't want to put down something because it's one that's it's gonna turn someone off, or it's like I said, there's definitely a spot for all of the games out there. Like everyone is going to have different things that they like, and you're not going to force someone to sit there and like what you like. You're not going to sit there and, you know what, if I tell you how bad your game is, you're really going to like Shatterpoint. That just doesn't make sense. It's like, and that's, I think, one of the things that I think we need to, we need to make clear when we're going and playing these games, teaching these games, is we're not there to sit there and put down what the other people are doing. We're sit there and promote the game that we're trying to grow. So I mean, that's, I guess, the biggest thing that I want to say is, find a place to sit there and play your game. Teach the people that you're playing, and teach them in a way that is fun to learn, not just here's the best way to get your teeth kicked in, because no one's going to want to sit there and play like that. And then, just like I said, just promote your game without hurting or without demoting something else.
yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And this is, I know this episode probably sounds a little bit like we're uh, being more philosophical and maybe not telling you exactly concrete steps, but it's because building a community is hard. Like
Yeah.
civilization exists because we've gotten better at community building, but we're still working on it as a species. So just remember that, like, Like you're gonna run a learn to play event and nobody's gonna show up.
Yeah.
I've done this at the library, not even these kind of events. Like I've put on, I put together a giant event that the teens in our community asked me for. It was a cosplay panel. They wanted a whole event where a band of cosplayers came in, talked about their craft, gave them ideas, blah blah blah. They begged me for that for months to do this. So I did it. One person came
Yeah.
to that event.
And that's one of,
One.
and that's one of the things, like, you can't get heartbroken over that. You can't take that personal. You're going to sit there and try and put together an event, and you're going to put, like, you're going to work it. You're going to sit there and promote the crap out of it on Discords or Facebook or Reddit, and you're going to sit there and work with the stores, and you're going to sit there and paint all these models and put together all this terrain and create this really cool event, and then one person shows up, and that's just your best friend who wanted to support you, and nobody else shows up. I mean, that's gonna happen, and you can't take that personal. You just be like, you know what, this didn't work out this time, let me try again. If you really want to grow your community, and like you said, we're not giving you step by step, do A, then do B, then do C, and it's all going to work out, because it's not. There's not a tried and true way of this is how you grow your community, other than reach out to the people around you, see if they're interested, show up, and make sure you're there. Just if you're going to do something, show up and do it. Don't just be like, I'm going to run this event. You know what? I'm not feeling good today and I don't want to do it. If you're Be accountable to the things that you say you're going to do. And that's all you can do. Like I said, I run the MCP event locally for our state championships. And there's a partner that I have that started it out with me, but sometimes he's able to be there, sometimes he's not. But everybody knows that I'm always going to be there. And that's the thing, is like, I'm going to show up because I said I'm going to show up. And I will be there no matter what. If I'm sick, I'll put a mask on or whatever, and I'll still show up and make sure the event fires. Because then that's really what you need to do, is just be there and be someone that some people want to game with. I mean, it's ultimately what it is. Is like, show up and be someone that people actually want to spend a couple hours with, learning to play a game. If you can do all of that, you're going to sit there and be able to grow a community. I think as you just have to be a good person, be someone who people want to be around.
And hey, Todd's gonna show up. Wind, rain, snow, ice, all that stuff. But you know what? Life happens.
Yeah.
Life happens, and maybe you really can't make it. I mean, you got the COVID or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Hey, it's awesome in our modern age that we spend billions of dollars on? Communication. You can let everybody know, hey, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I don't know what's going on, or I woke up and I'm dying. like like you can communicate, but also then make sure that and you might not be at your best. Hey, I've had a long week. I'm not really at my best right now, dear listeners. But you also take responsibility for that and try to like immediately reschedule
Mm.
or give them a plan, or at least say, hey, I'm really sorry, this isn't going to work out. If it's some kind of store event, maybe that you can give them like a do-over or a redo, or maybe some kind of like a promo card. Like, I know we don't have a lot of stuff for Shatterpoint, but there'll be more stuff over time. Like acknowledge that, and then tell them what you're going to do next. Don't just be like, well, I didn't show up and now it's not happening, okay, bye.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to sit there and hey, I messed up, or hey, life happened, or whatever. I can't make it. Can we reschedule for this date? I will be there this time. And it's now granted, if you don't follow through that second time, okay, maybe you're not going to have anybody like show up again. You just lost any kind of credibility you had. But try and make it up to them in whatever way you can. Hey, I'm sorry, I'll bring donuts next time, and we'll sit there and play tomorrow. Like in the morning, I can meet you this time, and I'll bring donuts and coffee, whatever. Like make it worth their while to show back up if it's that important to you. And I think if you're listening to this podcast and you want to sit there and grow the community, it's probably important to you. But I think that covers everything that I wanted
Yeah.
to. Did you have any final thoughts there, Aubrey?
I just, I just want to say that this stuff, again, it does take time. Like when I'm running events at the library, I I generally will only commit to doing something if I'm allowed to try it out a few times and to change the time or change the day or change the structure of what I'm doing if I have to. So revisit what you're doing and try it a few times. Like I fully expect that the first couple Shatterpoint learn to plays, like I'm gonna drive an hour. It's an hour from my place down to Maricopa, and people might show up, not show up at all. Might just be me hanging out.
Yeah.
That happens. I'm gonna do it a few times and and get feedback from the community or whoever it is you are talking to, even if it's just one other person. Look for feedback.
Mhm.
Talk to people. Say, hey, what does work? Use polls. Use the tool. We have so many tools at our disposal that we did not have before. It used to be just you put on an event and you looked into the distance and
Right.
hoped that your paper flyer got in the hands of the right person. We have the internet now. It's so much easier.
Yeah, no, there's definitely the tools to sit there and make this work out for you much better than it did in the past. So yeah, definitely take advantage of all of those resources that you have available. But yeah, I think that kind of sums up everything that we wanted to talk about. Couple of things on the back end here. If you haven't joined our Discord, please go ahead and jump in our Discord. It is free to join our Discord. We don't have it blocked off for only patrons or something like that. So you can definitely jump in there, have some great discussions. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. If you do want to support the channel, you can definitely become a patron for as low as $1 a month. We definitely do thank all of our patrons that have signed up and are helping to support the channel. Just to let everyone know, we are going to start doing a couple of giveaways for some stuff. So if you become a patron, you get some extra raffle tickets or whatever, virtual raffle tickets for whatever giveaways that we are going to be doing in the future. But we do also have some private channels within our Discord. If you want to become a patron, we definitely would appreciate it. That does definitely help support the channel. We do thank all and every one of our patrons for the support that they've given us up till this point in time. If you don't want to be a patron, but you do still want to support, you can definitely rate, review our podcast on whatever podcast platform you are listening to us on. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like, leave a comment, go ahead and ring the bell to subscribe so that anytime we do upload any content, you know when we get something new. But other than that, again, thanks for any support that you do give us. Again, I do want to say, may the force be with you.
May the force be with you.